Let us start with a new poem, Little Green Men by David Harris. It is actually a poem on science fiction, that is, imagination based on science. The poem is related to space, aliens, UFO, and all our imagination about them. Before we start with the poem, let us have an idea about aliens. Aliens can refer to everything from little green men in the science fiction realm to microscopic life forms beyond Earth. We break down the latest discoveries that hint at life on other planets and the state of scientific searches for such extraterrestrial life. Sometimes we may dissect a little green man sighting as well. Let us read out the first four lines of the poem. When we think of aliens, we envisage green men, but they could well be an assortment of different colors. What does this mean? When we think of aliens, we imagine green men. It's actually our imagination that brings out the green color to our mind because most of the films or anything like that, books that based on aliens are generally have green color on them. But the poet has different ideas. He thinks that the aliens can be collection of different colors. Little green men is a common phrase used to mean aliens. The green men bit of course comes from the fact that films and illustrations often depicts aliens in that hue. Little is a word that is casually added to the description without much thought. In this poem, David Harris draws the reader's attention to the fact that it might be a lazy way of thinking about aliens. We will now read out the next 6 lines of the poem. We say little green men, yet everyone describes them on a giant scale. However, suppose they were little, so little they could hide behind a blade of grass. Actually, the poet is quite confused about the shape as well as the size of the aliens. So, in the first 3 lines, he imagines the aliens on a giant scale. That means thinking the aliens as giant creatures. But in the next 3 lines, he supposes or he imagines that the aliens might be little or tiny as well, or how much? So tiny that it could even hide behind a blade of grass. According to David Harris, there is absolutely no rule that restricts the shapes or the sizes or the colors of aliens. So he argues that they could be of any color or size. He adds to the explanation that although aliens are depicted as giant creatures in most places. They might actually be minute, so tiny, in fact, that they might be able to hide behind green grass. Now we will read out the 11th and the 12th lines of the poem. They could have already invaded us, and we wouldn't have even known it. The poet here actually means to say that the aliens could have captured us, and even without our imagination, or we could have no idea about that. In the 13th, 14th, and 15th lines of the poem, it is written, we could even have them playing with their children in our own garden. That means aliens could be playing with our children. That's too without even our thought or imagination. According to the poet, aliens are so tiny, in fact, that they might be able to hide behind garden grass, mingling with human children, while the grown ups have no ideas. Let me read out the 16th and 17th lines of the poem. Now that makes you wonder when our pets stare at the grass. We are very wondered at our pets when They look fixedly or vacantly at the grass. We do not have any idea about their nature or about the reason of their staring. They could well be watching little green men frolicking about. What does this mean? Actually, we may not have the idea of their watching or staring at the grass, but they could be watching those little green men who are playing about happily on the grass. Now, there is something to ponder at. So, at the end, the poet wants that we should think about there is something that must be considered. In the last five lines of the poem, David Harris says that it might actually explain why pets sometimes stare unblinking at the grass for a long time at a stretch. And we must think about the fact. We come to the end of the poem Little Green Men by David Harris. Hope that you have enjoyed the explanation of the poem. Thank you for watching.